Before it spiraled out of her control, Brielle Lancaster knew she was in for a fight. Justice was never handed out easily, especially when it involved the police. But she wasn't prepared for how far they'd go to silence her. The first sign came the evening after her visit to the precinct. A black, unmarked SUV parked 2 houses down from hers. Inside, a man sat, pretending to scroll through his phone. She knew the look. He wasn't waiting for someone. He was watching her. She tested her theory, stepping outside to take out the trash, lingering on her porch longer than necessary. The man barely moved, but she caught it, the flicker of his gaze when she shifted. She smiled to herself. They were already making mistakes. The second sign arrived the next morning. In her mailbox, she found a plain white envelope with no return address or postage. Inside, a single sentence printed in bold black letters. Drop it. No signature, no threats, just 2 words. She exhaled, folding the paper neatly before tucking it into her back pocket. So, this was how they wanted to play it. Fine. She grabbed her car keys and drove to the law office of Jared Whitmore, an old brick building on the edge of town. Whitmore wasn't flashy, but he won cases, and that's all Brielle cared about. When she stepped into his office, he looked up from his desk, eyes narrowing slightly before recognition dawned. "Brielle Lancaster," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Been a long time." "I need your help," she said, tossing the letter onto his desk. Whitmore glanced at it, then back at her. "That was fast." "They don't want this getting out." He sighed, rubbing his temple. "You know what you're up against, right? Police departments cover for their own. Internal affairs is a joke. Even if I take this to court, we're looking at years before anything sticks, if anything sticks at all." Brielle studied him. "You afraid?" He chuckled dryly. "I'm a lawyer, Brie. I don't have the luxury of being afraid." She leaned forward. "Then let's make their lives hell." Whitmore exhaled, tapping his desk. "All right. First step, we file an official request for body cam footage. They'll try to stonewall us, claim it's under review, but if they deny it outright, that's our opening." Brielle nodded. "And if they refuse?" His smile was sharp. "Then we remind them that the court of public opinion is just as powerful as a courtroom." That night, Brielle walked King's usual route out of habit, past the row of houses and quiet sidewalks. The town felt smaller than ever. She was halfway home when headlights appeared behind her. A car slowed beside her, windows tinted too dark to see inside. It matched her pace. She didn't break stride, didn't look over. Then the passenger window slid down and a low, smooth voice spoke. "Walk away, Lancaster." Brielle kept moving. The car kept rolling. "Don't be stupid. File your little report, take the settlement, and let it go." She finally stopped, turning her head slightly. "That's supposed to scare me?" A chuckle. Number, "It's supposed to warn you." She stared into the darkness of the car. "You already made your mistake." Silence. Then, "Oh yeah?" She tilted her head. "Yeah. You should have shot me, not my dog." The car idled for a second longer, then the window slid up, and it drove away. Brielle stood there, watching until the taillights disappeared. Now it was personal. Brielle wasn't just angry, she was calculating. They wanted her to walk away, to disappear into paperwork and bureaucracy, to accept their mistake as an unfortunate incident. But they had underestimated her. By morning, she had a plan. The first move was pressure, legal, media, and community. Whitmore had already filed the request for the body cam footage, but Brielle knew they'd stall. So, she made her next call to Danny Ortega, a local journalist with a reputation for sniffing out corruption like blood in the water. They met at a diner off the highway, one of those places with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like burnt regret. Danny sipped her coffee, eyes sharp over the rim. "You sure about this, Bree?" Once we go public, there's no turning back. Brielle leaned in. They've already threatened me. That was their mistake. Danny set her cup down. Okay, then let's make them regret it. By midday, the first article dropped. Local woman demands justice after officers shoot her dog without cause. Department refuses to release footage. It spread fast. The headline alone had people talking, but Brielle wasn't done. She took to social media, posting a photo of King alongside a short caption. My name is Brielle Lancaster. My dog was shot in front of me by officers who never even checked to see if he was a threat. I have asked for body cam footage. They won't release it. Ask yourself why. The response was overwhelming. Some defended the officers, but the majority demanded answers. A local activist group reached out, offering support. A former cop messaged her privately, warning her to watch her back. Then came the third move: direct pressure on the department. She went back to the station, this time with a small crowd gathered outside. Neighbors, reporters, even strangers who had read her story. Whitmore was already there, arms crossed, waiting. As soon as she stepped inside, Captain Holbrook was there to greet her, his expression grim. You've made quite the spectacle, he said, voice low. Brielle didn't blink. Then give me what I asked for. Holbrook sighed, rubbing his temple. Lancaster, I told you. You told me to file a complaint. I did. You told me to go through the proper channels. I did. Now, I'm telling you, I'm not waiting anymore. Holbrook's eyes flicked past her toward the crowd outside. He exhaled sharply. Give me 48 hours. Brielle's jaw tensed. You've already had time. He leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. You keep pushing like this. You're going to make enemies you don't want. She smiled, but there was nothing warm about it. Already have. She turned and walked out, but she wasn't waiting for their decision. She was about to make hers. 48 hours passed. No footage, no answers, just silence. Silence meant they were scrambling. Silence meant they were afraid. That night, she parked 2 blocks away from the precinct, dressed in dark jeans and a jacket that concealed more than just the cold. She moved through the side streets like she had in far more dangerous places. The security cameras weren't a problem. She had studied the angles during her last visit. Officer Marcus Givens, a rookie who still believed in good cops, met her at the side entrance. You have 10 minutes, he whispered. If they catch you in here, I don't know you. She nodded. You never did. Inside, she found the footage labeled Incident Report 7456, Lancaster Residence. She inserted a flash drive, downloading the file as footsteps approached. The download hit 100% just as the door handle turned. She slipped the drive into her pocket and escaped into the night. The footage showed it all. The officers arriving, Wilcox shooting King without hesitation, and the moment they decided to cover it up. Danny ran the story the next morning. Body cam footage exposes officer involved, shooting cover-up, police fabricated report. The response was immediate. Protesters gathered outside the precinct, demanding justice. Holbrook announced an internal investigation, but it was too late. Whitmore stepped forward, reminding him that falsifying a police report and obstructing justice were criminal offenses. By that evening, Wilcox was in handcuffs. Brielle stood in her backyard that night, staring at the empty spot where King used to sit. Justice had been served, but it wasn't victory. Nothing could bring King back. But maybe, just maybe, it meant the next time something like this happened, the system would think twice before protecting the guilty. Danny's voice broke the silence behind her. What now? Brielle took a deep breath. Now, I make sure they don't do this to anyone else. Danny smirked. You thinking about a new career? Brielle let out a dry laugh. Let's just say I'm not done fighting. She walked inside, ready for the next battle. This time, they'd see her coming.